My name is Ben Martin, CAE. I am actually the Executive Director of the Review Society. The Review Society is a membership organization that is dedicated to advancing the science, the ethics, and the business of online reviews. Terry serves as the CEO of our technology division called 100Reviews. As an organization, we seek to educate the community on ethical, scientific practices that help organizations advance their businesses. And we also offer 100Reviews as a software platform that allows associations to kind of take their rightful place in what we call the review economy. So 100Reviews really exists to help associations provide their members with a resource that help them to make smarter, data-driven buying decisions at work. So as we get started on our presentation here, I want to talk about a personal story for me. I spent 12 years on the inside as an association executive. I wrapped up my association career before starting the Review Society with the Virginia Association of Realtors. We're a 40,000 member organization. And every year, my executive director would drop on my desk a budget and he would say, "Hey, Ben, here's $50,000. We want you to go out and buy us a new content management system." Or, "Ben, here's $30,000. We need an online community for our members." And if I think back to my time as an association executive, working with a team of 25 or more people in the office, one of the questions that we would always ask each other around the boardroom table is, what is it that keeps our members up at night? And we thought that, if we could solve that problem, if we could help our members sleep better at night, we would stand a better chance of getting them engaged and keeping them around as members. And so these buying decisions that I was asked to make at my association were literally the things that kept me up at night. And the reason for that is that this is a significant buying decision. So when the boss drops a $50,000 or $100,000 check on your desk and says, "Go out and buy us this new platform or this new system or this new whatever it was," this was a significant buying decision, one that I knew that I was going to have to face the consequences of for several years. And if I got this wrong, then I was going to have to live with that bad decision for a number of years. Not only that, but my fellow staff members and my members who are dues paying members would also be affected by this buying decision. And the reason that it was so stressful is that I felt like I was always relying on limited information. So if I talked to a sales rep, I knew that clearly that sales rep was not unbiased in their opinion. They weren't going to give me straight information on their competitors. I knew that whatever information I received from those sales reps or in the marketing briefs or any webinars that I watched was always going to be biased. What I really wanted to do was talk to other people who were just like me, who were going through the buying process. I didn't necessarily want to speak with reference clients because I knew that they had been cherry-picked to provide a good recommendation. And so nowadays, we all rely on online reviews because we trust people like us. And so by expanding our reach beyond just the sales reps and the clearly biased information, we could inform our decision with the opinions of people who are just like us. And again, because I was living in this fear of making a bad decision, these were literally the kinds of problems that kept me up at night. And again, as association exec, I think we're always asking ourselves, how can we solve the pain that our members are facing in our efforts to help keep them as members and get them more engaged, with the idea being that the more engaged the member is, the more likely they are to do things like renew, volunteer, come to events, make voluntary contributions to our foundations or to our political action committees. And so, this idea of bringing a solution to members that helps them solve a real world problem was a big deal. The cool thing about all of this is that associations are ideally positioned to help their members solve their insomnia problem. And here's why. The first reason is that you're already an unbiased source of information that your members trust almost inherently. You're already providing them with scholarly journals, vetted, peer-reviewed information about issues that are occurring either within the profession or with the industry. And members inherently trust the associations that they belong to. They wouldn't pay their dues to that organization if they didn't inherently trust you. Through 100 Reviews, we're able to provide you with a tool that will bring to you a very familiar format for today's buyers. In a few minutes, we're going to be discussing 3 trends that are colliding right now in the market that empower your association to bring to them a familiar, trusted site that kind of wraps up the ethos and the essence of your association. That's a trusted source, and then combine that with this familiar review site format, so that when people go to these sites, it evokes the concept of, oh, I'm looking at TripAdvisor, or maybe I'm looking at a Yelp review, but yet this is a B2B buying decision that I'm making. But the key is associations need to move quickly before somebody else does this. I think we're all well too familiar with LinkedIn and the way that it has grown over the past few years. And in many ways, LinkedIn has kind of taken over what we would think of as traditional association experiences, everything from continuing education to networking to collaboration. And our thought process is, well, before somebody else jumps on this opportunity, we want to provide associations with a tool that would allow them to seize the opportunity before somebody else does it. So this is the collision of the 3 trends that we think makes review sites for associations a really compelling opportunity. The first one is that online reviews are ubiquitous. It's probably likely that you don't make any buying decision as a consumer of more than $50 or $100 without first reading online reviews. And we're going to present some research in a few minutes that speaks to this. The second trend that's really interesting is that millennials are really voracious readers of reviews. More than any other generation, millennials' buying power is affected by online reviews. You also are probably aware that within the next 6 to 12 months, millennials will comprise more than 50% of the US workforce. And as millennials gain more buying power at work, as they step up their roles through managerial roles up to directors and vice presidents and even taking over the C-suite, these folks are going to rely upon reviews to help them make more informed buying decisions at work. And the third trend is that you may not realize this, but your association is actually the destination of choice. When B2B buyers are getting ready to make a significant purchasing decision, they actually prefer to talk to their fellow association members as they're making these important decisions. Now, taken alone, none of these 3 trends is all that earth-shattering, but as you can see at the gray center of this Venn diagram, 100 Reviews is perfectly positioned to help your association take advantage of the collision and the convergence of these 3 trends. So let's delve down into each of these 3 trends to help make the buying decision and the business case for an online review platform for associations. So just to cite some stats here, on an annual basis, 97% of consumers say that they read reviews before making buying decisions at least once per year. As I mentioned earlier, you probably don't make any buying decision more than about $50 or $100 without first reading reviews. And so just to illustrate this, let's play a little numbers game here. We got $25 at the top of our slide, and we're adding zeros as we make our way down the slide. So if you have $25 to spend on lunch, it's likely that you'll read reviews on Yelp before deciding where to go to get your lunch. If I have $250 to spend on a cappuccino machine, I'm probably going to read reviews on Amazon before making that buying decision. Or if I'm going to go down to, say, Florida for a vacation, and I'm going to spend $2,500 at a resort, I'm probably going to read TripAdvisor reviews before I go and make that buying decision. So let's continue adding zeros and bring this into the business-to-business concept. So let's just say I have $25,000 to spend on a consulting agreement. You know, wouldn't it be cool if I could read reviews about the consultants that I was thinking about hiring for that project? or if I had $250,000 to spend on a specialty medical device, let's say I work at a hospital or a dentist's office. If I have $250,000 to spend on an MRI unit, wouldn't it be cool if I could read reviews? Or let's say I work at a coal mine and I need to spend $2.5 million on some heavy machinery. Wouldn't it be great if I could read online reviews? And I think in the consumer world, this is just customary. This is just something that we do as a matter of course. In the business to business world, these reviews are less easy to find. And that's the problem that we're trying to solve with 100 Reviews. So already we're seeing this jump from the B2C world over to B2B with online reviews. So this slide illustrates that online reviews and testimonials are the second most influential factor in any B2B purchasing decision. In other words, only easy to access product information is more influential in B2B buying decisions than online reviews and testimonials. And in fact, what we're seeing is that 92% of B2B buyers are more likely to purchase a product if they've been able to read a trusted review about that product. Just as a quick aside here, one of the major points of pushback that we get from online review sites powered by 100 Reviews is this idea that, hey, if my vendors are getting reviewed, there's a chance that they might receive some negative reviews about their product. The flip side of that is actually worse. As it turns out, if B2B buyers have not been able to read a trusted review about that vendor, they are actually less likely to purchase from that vendor. So one of the points that we like to make to our association clients is, yes, there is a chance that your existing vendors who maybe support the association through sponsorships or advertising could get a negative review. The issue is that if they have no reviews and they can't, and your members cannot read or give reviews of that product or service that's offered by the vendor, those buyers of that product or service are actually less likely to buy because, again, they haven't been able to read those reviews. And again, as millennials are taking over the workforce, this expectation to read reviews in the workplace context is only set to increase. Speaking of which, millennials, as I mentioned earlier, are especially voracious readers of reviews. In fact, 4 out of 5 millennials in the UK say that they won't buy anything new without first reading online reviews. And I may have mentioned this earlier, but generations Y and Z, or what you might think of as millennials, are twice as likely to rely on reviews when they're getting ready to make a buying decision. And again, as millennials are getting ready to take over the workforce, by the year 2020, they'll comprise more than 50% of the workforce. This expectation to read reviews in the B2B context is only set to accelerate. So it's important that associations recognize this trend and give their members, especially those who are rising up through the ranks, or maybe those are the millennials that are difficult for your association to acquire or to retain in the first place. This is why we think that online review sites are an especially impactful trend for millennial members as associations are trying to acquire and retain those members. So the third trend that we wanted to talk about, and let's rewind and think about that Venn diagram that I showed you at the top. We've got reviews are ubiquitous. Millennials are especially voracious readers of reviews, and they're taking over the workforce. The third bubble in that Venn diagram is this notion of associations and their rightful place in the review economy. So as your members are getting ready to make buying decisions, let's think about the idea that your association is already perceived as an authoritative and unbiased source of information. All associations are trying to stay relevant by offering services that their members want and expect to see within their workforce or in their workplace. All of our associations in the marketplace now are looking for new ways to engage our members. And those millennial members, I think, have been especially perplexing for associations to try to figure out what is that hook that gets our millennials engaged with our associations so that we can keep them as members and even just acquire them in the first place. And we know that engagement in and of itself is a really great thing, right? It helps to lead to more retention, more volunteerism, voluntary contributions to foundations, political action committees. But the other cool thing about this engagement and the way that we're mining data these days as associations is that we can also use those points of engagement to spot trends and inform decision-making about, say, vendors that we should be approaching for exhibiting at our trade show or for advertising. All associations are seeking sources of non-dues revenue, of course. Most associations, I would say, would prefer to be less reliant on member dues to help finance the missions of their organizations. And we've actually developed business plans that help associations to monetize their online review platforms to help them drive their engagement engine. We also know that as associations, we have a vast array of resources at our disposal. So we have prospective member lists, our current membership roster. We have current and former advertisers and exhibitors that we can use to tap into to help to drive the engagement, but also the revenue that can be used to finance the site and then also contribute back to the bottom line of any association to help them achieve their mission. I think we've established already that members, for the most part, are unable to give and read reviews on the workplace buying decisions that they're making. It's very difficult to source reviews about specific niche markets within any profession or any or trade. So the association is ideally positioned as the convener of that profession or industry to provide a B2B review resource to help their members make those buying decisions. But the most important thing here is that your members are already turning to each other to get recommendations and reviews on the products and services that they buy at work. So this isn't just my opinion. This is actually scientifically peer-reviewed scholarly research that was published in the Journal of the Academy of Marketing Science in July of 2017. And these are direct quotes from this academic journal. By the way, if you're not familiar with this journal, it's a peer-reviewed journal. It takes about 18 to 24 months to get any research published within this journal because everything goes through this peer-reviewed process. And again, these are direct quotes from the Journal of the Academy of Marketing Science, some research published out of Wake Forest University in 2017. So again, direct quote, purchasing professionals often turn to the myriad of online groups, forums, and communities when they're getting ready to make a big buying decision at work. Purchasing professionals value these places because they can listen in on conversations, ask questions, and gain quick responses to those questions. And here's the money quote. Respondents actually expressed a preference for communities that are sponsored by their industry trade associations. So that's the science. Let me give you an example. This is an online community that I belong to, and I took this screenshot on just an average day, and you'll see that within the space of about 4 hours, there were 5 requests for recommendations for a product or service that members of this community would use. So, for example, we have speaker looking for a speaker. I'm getting ready to go through an office renovation, and I'm looking for an architect. How about a CMS, a content management system that can tailor the content based on user behavior, or a webinar platform, or a photographer in Orlando? So in the space of just 4 hours, there were 5 requests for recommendations or reviews. So this is all well and good, but let's just kind of analyze this through the lens of today's buyer, especially those millennial buyers who are coming up through the workplace ranks right now. So the first thing I want to point out is that with any forum or listserv, what's coming back when I request a recommendation is just unstructured text. These are just letters on a screen. As a result, there's very little context or objectivity around that review. Wouldn't it be more helpful if instead of saying, you should use so-and-so, they're awesome, I could see, well, how do they do on customer service? How innovative are they? Are they adaptable to my specific business case, for example? Also, wouldn't it be cool to know at a glance if this person is a manager or if they're a CEO, or if they work in finance, or if they work in information technology. Again, all these replies that come back by text are just mere letters on the screen. So there's little objectivity or context around that review. Increasingly, this is an unfamiliar format for especially those millennial members who are coming up through the ranks. Most millennials nowadays are looking to see, is this a thumbs up? Is it a thumbs down? What percentage of members would recommend this product or service? And at the end of the day, we also know that these same questions are getting asked over and over within our online communities, which really creates a lot of noise. I've actually had conversations with very high-profile members of organizations who say, I have decided to disengage with these online communities because I see the same questions asked over and over, and they're always requests for recommendations or reviews. And their thought process is, well, why don't you just search the damn archives? So instead of asking the same questions over and over, do a search and find out that information for yourself. But unfortunately, our members don't take the time to search the archives, which is why we see these same questions asked over and over. The other way that members at your association are exchanging reviews, obviously, is during networking events and conferences. So members are saying, hey, what do you recommend? Do you have, what vendor do you use for X, Y, Z? And members are giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down during these conversations. This is all well and good, but again, the only people who gain from those conversations are the ones who actually experienced those interactions. So wouldn't it be better if we could capture these reviews for the good of the order so that all members could benefit from the recommendations that are being exchanged, whether they're in forums or whether they're happening at conferences and events? And really, this is the opportunity that we're presenting to associations, is that we can do better than this. So again, when reviews and recommendations are given at trade shows and networking events, they evaporate into thin air as soon as they're spoken. When reviews and recommendations are given on forums and in online communities, they also evaporate within days. So that conversation slinks off the front page of the forum. They're no longer distributed through the email digests that go out, whether it's on a daily or a weekly basis. And so really what 100 Reviews does is it captures all of that review data for the good of the order so that everyone within your association can benefit. So again, what we're trying to do is raise the game through 100 Reviews that will help associations give their members a resource to allow them to make better, more data-driven and informed buying decisions. So that's the business case for why we built 100 Reviews. At this point,